But now on Radio 4, it's time for Woman's Hour with Anna Foster, live in Salford.
Good morning. Let's begin with Monday, which marks the 1st of September, and with it, Parliament will resume. And one issue Labour's former Prime Minister Gordon Brown is hoping will be on Sir Keir Starmer's itinerary is issuing an apology for what he's called the state's role in the terrible tragedy of historic forced adoptions. Now, between 1949 and 1976, thousands of pregnant women and girls in the UK were sent away to prison-like homes run by the church and state and had their babies put up for adoption. In 2021, an inquiry by the Joint Committee of Human Rights concluded that the state bore ultimate responsibility for the suffering inflicted on vulnerable women and on their children, and called on the government to issue an official apology. Now, earlier this week, Gordon Brown added his voice to this campaign, saying that the apology should be made in this parliamentary term. Well, with me to discuss it in more detail are two women who've been campaigning for this for years and have experience of it too. Diana Defries, who's chair of the Movement for Adoption Apology, and Karen Constantine, who's the author of Taken, Experiences of Forced Adoption. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Really grateful to have you with us this morning to explore this, but also to share your experiences as well, which I know you have time and time again over the years to try and get some sort of action on this. I wanted to start with that intervention from Gordon Brown. Karen, do you think that will help move things forward?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I think when Gordon Brown speaks, then people certainly listen. And when you take a close listen to what he said in that interview, he has already said that he's been in touch with the Department for Education and he's anticipating an apology early in the new term in Parliament. So I really hope so, because the burden of shame and the trauma and the secrecy that women have experienced, some now in their 70s and 80s, frankly, they are taking that to the grave with them. And this apology is urgent. And I should say that when I started to do the research for the book about 3 years ago, and I interviewed more than 40 people, all people wanted, whether they were mothers that had had their babies taken from them, whether they were other family members, fathers, for instance, or whether they were the people that were taken, the adult adoptees, they all just wanted the apology. It is vital now that the government step up and give this apology. And we would like them to do that in concert with us. We would like to have a discussion with them, because to date, we haven't been able to do that.
You're right. It's a powerful thing to receive an apology for anything, isn't it? How do you feel, Diana? Do you feel that this is moving things forward?
As Karen said, I sincerely hope so. We've had prominent people speak on our behalf before, and we've had hopes then, and we have hopes now. We just have to wait and see. We have no idea what will happen and how this will unfold, but we want to be cautiously hopeful.
Would you, Diana, as well, just remind us, because of course regular listeners to the programme know that this has happened in Ireland. It's something we've covered a lot on the programme, but people might be surprised to know that this took place in the UK as well. Tell us more about what happened.
It's a long, sad story of exploitation, really. When a young woman found herself pregnant, and again, it was always the women who were punished or vilified. It was very seldom, attention very seldom went to the fathers of these children. There was a sense that she'd transgressed the social norms, she brought shame on the family, and she would be sent to either a mother and baby home or somewhere similar, hidden away, left to deal with her pregnancy on her own. Often there was no antenatal care, and the process of bringing that child into the world would also be extremely traumatic, because the attitudes of those people who were around during delivery were often extremely harsh. It varied from woman to woman, home to home, situation to situation, but ultimately it was very, very difficult. And even when arguing one's case as a young mother, no one listened. No one gave options about what you might be able to do to keep your baby. It was always a matter of, you'll do the best thing, you'll give this baby to a proper family. And the way that was put was, if you love your baby, you'll surrender it for adoption. You'll do the right thing. You'll do the best thing. It was one of the cruelest things that could have been done to a young mother.
Karen, what happened to you?
Well, I just wanted to add to what Diana had said. I mean,
Yeah.
it was cruel. And I think the point here is it was profit making. So that when I went into a mother and baby home, my parents were asked to make a contribution because they were poor. They were allowed the discounted rate of £20 per week, which is now about 140 something. So that's a vital thing to understand in this. This wasn't just about the shaming of women and girls, but it was also about making money. And many of the churches had robust networks into which we were all fed. So I went into a mother and baby home in 1978, which is obviously beyond 1976. And in that, I was taken away from, as all the women were, completely cut off from your family, your education, your work in some cases. You were completely isolated. I certainly felt like a prisoner. I was a very young 15-year-old. And, I didn't have the assertiveness then that I have now. So I didn't ask if I could go outside. I just remained inside. I was essentially shamed and judged and then indoctrinated repeatedly on a daily basis by a man that was the priest and also my social worker to hand over my baby. And in the end, I didn't, for whatever reason. But when I came out of that home, I was then part of, a society that continued to judge me and my child and the second child that I had. I had another child very quickly because I wanted to be a family, because I'd been told a family was a good thing to be. And we lived in poverty, in squalor, in a community that scorned us. We became the reason why other mothers might look at a young woman that was pregnant and say, you don't want to end up like her. So I was, cut off from most of my family. That's a pattern that persists. I'm sure this is in common with other women. And when I found out the scale, when I found out it was 215,000 women that had been subject to this, rather than just me in a sort of isolated bubble,
Yeah.
and when I later came to realise it's probably in the region of 500,000 women that have been put through this process, that's what stimulated me to write the book, because I couldn't believe that all of that lived experience and all of the politics of the situation wasn't captured somewhere. And the point is now, we have made a fuss with the government. We have written to the ministers repeatedly. We have laid it out as simply as it can be laid out. And it is now time for this apology and for reparations to follow.
Yeah, and as you explained there so powerfully, it's not just something that affects those years when it's happening. It's something that continues to affect you for the rest of your life. And Diana, in your case, you had your daughter taken away from you.
Yes, when she was 12 days old, I was taken from the south coast where I'd been sent, and I didn't want to let her go. So she was literally, torn is too strong a word, but she was taken very with a great deal of intent from my arms. And we were separated. And in that moment, an adoptee loses everything and a mother is utterly bereft. I think the point I'd also like to make is that because there's very little or no antenatal care, very little or no postnatal care, and there's no acknowledgement, it becomes a secret, because nobody ever says, congratulations on your baby. Nobody ever acknowledges what you've been through. So you live with this really profound experience. It's a rite of passage. Having your first child is a rite of passage, and it's sullied by this, and you're damaged by this. And so many women, whether in Karen's situation or in my own, or each situation is unique, but we all carry the trauma of having a child taken or having been through a mother and baby home and being treated as if we're the lowest of the low. And nobody acknowledges it. So what we need in this apology is an acknowledgement of the huge injustice that's been done, the damage that's been done, the terrible things that people have had to live with in secrecy because nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
And now it's time. It's time that people listen. It's time that people acknowledge it. And what Karen was saying about it being a money-making machine, absolutely. Nothing proliferates without profit. And that big machine that was operating, that was enabled by the state. So we expect something from this government. We hope for something from this government to acknowledge all the injustices, to acknowledge all the cruelties, and to acknowledge the machinery that was in place, that was empowered by the governments of the time.
Yeah, a spokesperson for the current government has said this abhorrent practice should never have taken place, and our deepest sympathies are with all those affected. We take this issue extremely seriously and continue to engage with those affected to provide support. What it doesn't do is give what you want, which is an apology or a date for it. I wonder, in the case of both of you actually, what impact this had on your children, because Diana, you did reconnect with your daughter.
I did. We were two of the more fortunate people in situations like this. We managed to reconnect just after her 18th birthday. And excuse me, we had a lot of time to sort of begin that relationship, but those relationships are never quite what you would expect them to be. They're never as they would have been. Nothing quite fits in the way it was. So I think those journeys are very difficult. And the impact on, I didn't have any more children, so I can't talk about the impact on subsequent children. And I'm not alone in that. A lot of women who went through that experience didn't have any more children. The problem is that the impact lasts. So whether or not you have a reunion, whether or not you manage to establish a long-term relationship, it's still there. The impact of that separation is still there. No, it never goes away.
Karen, you kept your son, as you said, but you also had a second son as well, as you were describing.
I did.
How do you, as they're growing up, how do you describe that to them? How do you, because eventually they come to know you and the work that you do as they've grown up. How's it changed their lives?
Well, to be honest, would I wish that was the case, really. The pattern that was laid down in my family regarding my behaviour at 15 and my proclivity for getting pregnant and the punishment that I received is a pattern that's been repeated. I'm still estranged from my family. And unfortunately for me, that has extended to my oldest son. And my youngest son, unfortunately, died in 2001. So I don't have the opportunity to explain to them, to even say, look, I'm sorry, I did my best. We had a lot of love. We had a lot of good times, actually. But it's very difficult they weren't brought up in a way that I later brought up my second two daughters. So by the time I had my second two daughters, I was established, I had a career, I had money. They had a completely different lifestyle. They didn't grow up in a cold, dingy house. It was much better. I think the impact on me was that I was constantly striving to prove myself. And so I think I probably had PTSD, and I probably was never the relaxed mother that I wanted to be. So I think it has long-term impact. But I do want to say one thing, which is about those words from the government that you read out, because I'll tell you this, we are absolutely sick of hearing those words because they are absolutely hollow. We get that response every single time we write to a minister, whether that's Janet Darby or whether that's Bridget Phillipson. And we get this platitude that the government are engaged with us. Well, I'm a seasoned trade union negotiator, and I can tell you, they are not engaged with us. They are not meeting with us. They are not listening to us. And they are most definitely not responding to any of the significant issues based on current research that we are raising with them. So the increased suicide rate that's been discovered amongst first mothers and adoptees, no response from the government on that. The issue of the use of Strobestol, which was to suppress breast milk, the intergenerational impact of that, which is carcinogenic. Have they responded? No, they haven't. So they are not engaged with us at all. And we write to them regularly and we get that platitude back. And frankly, this Labour government needs to step up now. Gordon Brown is quite right. We need that apology. And actually, we need to be in a room with them to explain what has happened, how this has happened, and what steps they need to take now.
Yeah.
This is another social injustice. It's no less than the postmasters scandal or the nuclear lab rats or the infected blood scandal. We are part of that group and we expect it to be treated with dignity and some respect.
Yeah.
So I think it's about time that they stepped up.
I'm grateful to you both for speaking so powerfully and so honestly on the subject and giving people, I think, a real insight into what you've been through over the years. Thank you, Karen Constantine and Diana Defries. Thank you for joining us. Thank you as well for your thoughts on the text this morning already. An interesting one here that says, good morning, not always the case. I was born in 1957. My mum was unmarried and pregnant, and her family, my grandparents, cared for her. She stayed at home with them, and subsequently, when I was born, they welcomed, loved and adored me. And in fact, another message here as well said this was society inflicting this awful stigma on single mums. The parents of these girls could, in some cases, have supported them, not been ashamed, not sent them away. It is, as you were hearing there, just something that at such a formative stage in life can have an impact that lasts for years and years and really changes the person you become. Your thoughts, very welcome